Hi, I'm Lauren, and on my 20th birthday, my sister told me I was adopted, like it was news. But what she didn't know is that I'd already found out, weeks ago, alone. What no one's asking is, why now? Why tell me right after cake? Why was my birth mother institutionalized? And why did my father sign her away? They thought I'd fall apart. Instead, I started pulling at the seams, and what unraveled wasn't just my story. It was theirs, too. What would you do if your entire family built a lie around your name? I should have known something was off the moment I walked into the living room. The whole house was too quiet, too still. The air smelled like vanilla cake, the kind that only shows up in commercials or Hallmark movies. But we weren't that kind of family. Mom never baked, not even at Christmas, and definitely not on birthdays, except today. She sat stiffly on the couch, her hands resting on her lap like she didn't know what to do with them. Dad, Lowell, stood near the fireplace, arms crossed, not even pretending to smile. I hovered by the doorway, 20 years old and still in my pajamas. I thought maybe this was their awkward version of a surprise party, but then Sabrina opened her mouth. "You know you're adopted, right?" she said, like she was offering me the weather report. I didn't blink, didn't move. I just looked at her. That smug little curve at the corner of her mouth. She wanted a reaction, maybe tears, maybe a scene. She wasn't going to get one. I turned toward the cake. 3 uneven layers, slathered in pale pink icing. "Happy 20th, Lauren," written in shaky letters. It looked like a joke now, a distraction, a prop in a twisted play. What stung wasn't the news. I'd already known. What gutted me was that it came from her. 3 weeks ago, while digging through the hallway cabinet looking for my health card, I found an envelope shoved behind tax files. Inside, a copy of a birth certificate, my name, and a mother I'd never heard of. Marjorie Gine. No father, no familiar surname, no trace of Deborah or Lowell. I'd kept the secret to myself, letting it simmer while I searched the name online, ran public record searches, and printed out pages at the public library. I even looked up old news stories, some of which made my stomach twist. But I wasn't ready to confront anyone, not yet. I wanted the truth, not just from a paper trail, but from their mouths. And now Sabrina, my sister, if I could still call her that, decided to rip the curtain open in the middle of my birthday cake reveal. "They didn't tell you?" she added, twisting the knife. "Wow, that's cold." I clenched my jaw so hard it hurt, but my hands stayed loose. My voice even. "Well," I said, "happy birthday to me." Lowell finally moved. He picked up the knife and started slicing the cake, as if someone hadn't just lobbed a grenade into the room. Mom didn't say a word, not one damn thing. The silence was louder than any scream. I waited a beat. Maybe they'd explain, maybe they'd lie. But they didn't bother. It was done. A quiet execution. And like always, they left Sabrina to do the dirty work. I stepped forward, took a slice, set it on a plate, then turned to them. "Thanks for the cake," I said, my tone so polite it was poison. "And the performance, real top-shelf stuff." Neither of them looked at me. The knife clinked against the ceramic plate, and that was it. I left the room. No one followed. No one asked me to stay. Back in my bedroom, I moved fast, grabbed the duffel bag I kept under the bed, the one I'd quietly started filling after I found that birth certificate. A change of clothes, cash, documents, my old notebook with scribbled names and addresses I wasn't supposed to have. I zipped it shut in seconds. I didn't cry. Not then, not even a little. They thought they'd knock the air out of me, but the truth was, I'd been holding my breath around them for years. I walked past the fridge on my way out. The cake was still there, untouched. Linked to next chapter. They thought I'd cry when they kicked me out. I smiled instead, and they didn't even notice. I stood still on the porch, duffel bag strapped over my shoulder, the silence pressing down harder than anything said at the table. Then I heard footsteps behind me, measured, deliberate. Lowell. I didn't turn around. "You forgot this," he said, setting another duffel bag at my feet like it was a casual delivery. "We figured you'd leave today. That one has extra clothes, some cash. Should keep you going for a while." I glanced down. Same black bag I'd seen him carry to the trunk before family road trips. Reused and repurposed. Like me. Thanks for the generosity, I said. My voice was steady. It scared me how easy it was to sound polite in a moment like this. Behind him, Deborah hovered in the doorway. Her arms were crossed, lips pale. She didn't say anything. She never did unless it was rehearsed. That woman could go silent for hours if the mood suited her. But today, I could see the script she'd memorized burning behind her eyes. She wasn't shocked. She wasn't heartbroken. She was prepared. That was when it hit me. This wasn't some emotional fallout. This had been planned. They didn't stumble into a difficult truth. They set the stage and handed Sabrina the first line. "You're a smart girl, Lauren," Lowell added. "You'll figure things out. Independence builds character." I almost laughed. Not because he was funny, but because I could hear the lie wrapped in Hallmark wisdom. The kind of line a man says when he wants to be seen as the reluctant hero, firm but caring. I leaned forward slightly, just enough to meet his gaze. "Don't worry. I figured you out a long time ago." His jaw twitched, but he didn't respond. Deborah looked away, arms hugging herself tighter. I picked up the second bag and stepped past him. Down the porch steps, down the walk, not once looking back. If they'd rehearsed a goodbye, I wasn't going to give them a performance. By the time I hit the sidewalk, the wind picked up. Early spring chill bit through my sweater sleeves, but I kept walking, block after block, past the little corner store where Dad used to buy Sunday papers, past the bus stop where Mom once made me wait in the rain because she lost track of time. Everything familiar looked fake now, like props. I didn't pull out my phone. I didn't text anyone. No one to call. No one I trusted enough yet. It took me 20 minutes to reach the edge of town, where the park sat quiet and nearly empty. I settled onto a cold bench near the fountain, legs stiff, breath sharp. A few high school kids rode bikes in the distance, their laughter echoing like it came from another life. I bent down and peeled back the inner sole of my left shoe. Tucked inside, just as I left it, was the tiny black flash drive, my backup, my real insurance policy. I opened my notebook and wrote one sentence. I didn't stay long at the park. The wind picked up, and with every passing hour, the cold bit harder through my sleeves. Around 9:30 p.m., I opened my notebook and flipped to a page I'd marked days ago. Cheap hostel listings, all cash, no ID required, just in case. I circled one, then I walked. 10 blocks. No streetlights for half of it. No one noticed me. That was the point. The man behind the front desk didn't ask questions. I gave him $30 and a fake name I'd used once for a library card. He slid a key across the counter and pointed upstairs. The room was no bigger than a closet. The mattress was thin, the heater rattled, and the bathroom light flickered when I turned it on. I slid the desk in front of the door and used my duffel bag as a pillow. I didn't sleep, but I survived the night. That was enough. By sunrise, I was already heading to the library, moving fast, before anyone had time to look too close. That place was my shelter long before I needed it to be, quiet, neutral. No one there expected eye contact or conversation. Just pages and silence. 3 weeks ago, I'd found the envelope that flipped everything. I wasn't snooping. I was looking for my insurance card. The file cabinet drawer jammed, and when I tugged harder, it gave way too far. Papers spilled. One unlabeled manila folder slid out. Inside, a birth certificate. Mine. Name, Lauren DeFeo. Mother, Marjorie Gine. Father, blank. At first, I thought it was fake, or a mistake, but everything matched. Date, place, hospital. I ran the name online. The deeper I dug, the more it twisted. Marjorie wasn't a criminal, but she'd vanished from every traceable system right after I was born. Sabrina had never once asked me about that envelope, and I never told her I found it. But now, I wondered, had she known all along? I stayed in the library until late morning, scrolling through newspaper archives, scanning what little I could onto my second flash drive. When my eyes started burning, I walked back to the hostel, head low, heart steady. The second I opened the door, I knew something was off. My duffel bag was unzipped. The chair I'd wedged against the door had been nudged, barely, but enough. I crouched next to the dresser, pulled up the loose floor tile. The envelope. Gone. My chest tightened, not from fear, but fury. Someone came for what I'd hidden. I dumped my bag onto the bed, rifled through every pocket. Notebook, intact. Flash drive, still in my sock. It wasn't a robbery, it was a search, and not just by anyone. My mind went back to the library yesterday. Someone had stood behind me in the microfilm aisle, just out of view. I didn't think much of it at the time, but I remembered the shoes, black Converse, faded white laces. Sabrina, she'd been there, pretending to text, maybe watching, she knew. Maybe not just yesterday, maybe since the beginning. Maybe she wasn't just cruel, maybe she was planted. The thought made my skin crawl. I sat down slowly, opened my notebook, flipped past sketches and names and half-finished timelines, and wrote something new at the top of a blank page. They don't get to tell my story. I do. Link to next chapter? That's when I heard the name Inez for the first time. And everything changed. That night, I didn't sleep. I lay on the thin mattress in the hostel, eyes wide open, the overhead light buzzing faintly. My mind kept circling around Sabrina. How many times had I ignored the signs? How many quiet questions, glances over my shoulder? Coincidences at the library. I kept seeing her in that black hoodie, tapping away at her phone by the archive window. Pretending. Always pretending. They had me under surveillance long before I ever asked for the truth. I pulled the covers tighter and made a decision. At sunrise, I'd go back to the library. I wouldn't just search for Marjorie. I'd go deeper. Ridgewell, Inez, anyone who came before me and disappeared without noise. If they were going to erase me like her, they'd have to work harder. By 7:15 the next morning, I was already hunched over the microfilm reader. I'd skipped breakfast, skipped everything except this. I started with Ridgewell Behavioral Center. It barely existed online, scrubbed, like so many of the things connected to that family. But the library had archived local papers back to the early 2000s, and that's where I found her. Student journalist disappears after investigation into Ridgewell Center. Byline: Glenda Doss. Date: March 2006. Inez Shipman, 23, journalism grad student. She'd been digging into Ridgewell, focusing on rumors of unorthodox therapy techniques, and a woman identified only as Marjorie G. Her last recorded movement? Seen at the downtown bus terminal. After that, nothing. Vanished. And no one followed up. I leaned back, the microfilm machine still humming. Inez had been asking the same questions I was now. The same name, the same path, and she disappeared. Not a coincidence. I printed the article and tucked it deep into my bag. Back at the hostel, I barely closed the door behind me when my phone rang. Blocked number. I hesitated, then answered. Hello? A long pause. Then a voice, low, gravelly, like someone forcing the words through clenched teeth. Stop digging into Ridgewell. You're not her. My fingers went numb, but I didn't hang up. I waited. Nothing else. Click. I stood frozen in the middle of the room. That wasn't Sabrina. That wasn't even a warning. It was a decision waiting to be acted on. Someone was watching me, and now they wanted me to know it. And suddenly, all the pieces fit. Sabrina didn't just know. She was part of it. That wasn't just spying. That was strategy. That was a job. And she wasn't doing it for herself. She was doing it for Lowell. She wasn't protecting the family. She was protecting him. That realization made my stomach turn. Not because it was shocking, but because deep down, I had always suspected it. I moved fast. No panic. No wasted motion. I stuffed the USB drive and my most important notes into a manila envelope, headed straight to the bus terminal, and rented a locker in the back row. The key went straight onto a chain under my shirt. Then I pulled out the article again. Glenda Doss. She was the only byline on the Inez story. If she was still alive, maybe she hadn't forgotten. I found a number, left a voicemail that felt like rolling dice. If you knew Inez, I think you know what's happening to me too. The call came in at 2:07 a.m. My phone vibrated on the nightstand like it was shaking with me. I answered without thinking. Lauren? A woman's voice, older, ragged, but not weak. It cracked like a branch under pressure. This is Glenda. You left a message. About Inez? I sat up. Yes, I think I'm on the same path she was. and I think someone's trying to make sure I don't finish it. Silence then. You don't know how deep this goes. Her words dropped like ice water down my spine. Inez was smart, she continued. Determined. She didn't scare easy. But Ridgewell wasn't about treatment. It was containment. If you got too close, you got tagged. Tagged? They follow you, like a shadow you didn't know you had. I swallowed hard. My mom, Marjorie, what do you know about her? She tried to stop them. She filed complaints, threatened to go public. Next thing I knew, she was gone. Same week I got reassigned, no warning, no goodbye. Glenda exhaled shakily. They don't let people leave. They erase them. We agreed to meet the next night outside the old Ridgewell grounds. Discreet, no tech, no names spoken aloud. She was terrified, but still willing to talk. That told me everything I needed to know about what we were up against. After I hung up, I sat there in the dark. The walls felt closer, like even silence had ears. So I got to work. I pulled up the cloud account I used to store documents. One of them, a dummy file I'd labeled Real Identity Certificate, had been accessed. IP log, Lowell's home address. I'd planted it as bait, and he took it. That confirmed it. He was watching. Always had been. And now he knew I was watching back. The next call came 2 hours later, just as the sun was pushing pale blue through the curtains. Lowell. I didn't answer at first. Let it ring once, twice, then picked up. His voice was smooth, practiced, like he was reading off a card. We wanted to protect you, Lauren. There's a lot you don't understand. I didn't say anything. You were safe. We made sure of that. I took a breath, slow and even. You were never my father, I said, and I was never your secret. He went quiet, then hung up. I stood still for a full minute before moving. Then I packed. I left a note at the hostel. If I disappear, look into Lowell Kemper, Ridgewell. Sabrina knows everything. I took the real USB, the only uncorrupted one, and walked straight to Lincoln State Bank. It took 20 minutes to get a safety deposit box. I left it there, along with my second notebook, in case I never came back. Then I bought a one-way bus ticket. The woman I used to call Mom tried to stop them. Inez tried to expose them. Now it was my turn. The air behind Ridgewell smelled like mildew and forgotten things. Paint peeled from the old emergency door where Glenda told me to meet her. It was almost midnight when her silhouette appeared under the flickering light. She was shorter than I imagined, with deep lines around her mouth like she'd been holding back truth for decades. You came alone? She asked, voice low. I nodded. No phone, no trail. She didn't smile, just gave a tight nod and led me down a side hallway that hadn't seen real use in years. The floors creaked beneath us. The whole place felt like it was holding its breath. I've kept this hidden for years, she said, stopping in front of an old records room. She used a key so worn it looked like it came from another era. Inside, rows of metal drawers towered over us. She found one labeled M. Geen. She hesitated, then opened it. Red stamp shouted across the top pages. Unfit. Delusional. Security risk. But deeper in the file, scribbled in a trembling hand, were notes that didn't sound delusional at all. Memory suppression trials initiated without consent. Subjects isolated under false diagnoses. I am not unstable. I am a witness. She never stopped documenting, Glenda said, voice tight. She wrote these right before they sedated her permanently. I felt my jaw tense. And no one listened. They buried her. We moved through another hallway, quieter still, until Glenda stopped outside a locked room. She's in there, she whispered. Be careful. Sometimes she talks, sometimes she doesn't. I knocked gently, then pushed open the door. A woman sat by the window, hair streaked with silver, skin pale under the yellowed light. She didn't turn right away. Marjorie? I said, voice trembling. I'm Lauren. I'm your daughter. Her eyes shifted, slowly, then locked onto mine. They think I forgot, she whispered. I never did. I stepped closer, the air between us thick with something I couldn't name. She looked at me, not through me, and I saw it then. She wasn't broken. She was exhausted. They made me forget, she murmured, but not completely. She spoke of sedatives slipped into her food, sessions where they asked her to doubt her own memory. Fake diagnoses scribbled by men with power and no conscience. They told me I was protecting you by staying quiet, she said. But that wasn't true. They just didn't want me to speak. Glenda waited at the door. Before I left, she pressed something into my hand. A worn USB drive. She hid it in her shoe the night they locked her in. I kept it safe. Later, on the bus back into town, I plugged it into a borrowed library laptop. The audio clicked on, static giving way to a clear voice. If anyone hears this, I was never crazy. I was never sick. I was silenced. Link to next chapter. I walked out of Ridgewell that night with my mother's voice burning in my pocket and fire in my chest. The library lights flickered as the file loaded on screen. I scrolled through the scanned pages of Marjorie's commitment form again, looking for anything I'd missed the first 5 times. And there it was. The last page. Signature line, legal guardian authorization, signed Lowell Kemper. I didn't blink. I didn't breathe. He hadn't just stood by. He hadn't just lied. He'd signed her away. Like property. Like a formality. I stepped outside, hands shaking, and called Glenda. My voice cracked. You knew. There was silence on the line, then a quiet, painful sigh. I suspected. I didn't have the papers. I didn't want to believe it. You should have told me. I was afraid, but not anymore. Her voice changed, steadier, raw. I wasn't the only one who tried to help someone. There was another girl, Inez. I gave her access. I broke rules, and when she vanished, they came for me too. I stopped pacing. What happened? They made me sign an NDA, threatened to revoke my license, said if I kept quiet, I'd be safe. And now? Now I'm ready to burn it all down. So was I. The next morning, I boarded a Greyhound headed west. Destination Wyoming. A borrowed name. A cabin in the pines. Avis Mangum. A journalist who'd gotten too close to the Halverson Foundation a decade ago. Fired, blacklisted, disappeared, by choice. She opened the door before I knocked. You're Lauren, she said. Took you long enough. Inside, we sat at a worn kitchen table surrounded by stacks of old case files. I handed her the USB, Marjorie's file, the audio clip. Avis didn't flinch. I've been waiting for this. You just gave me the kill switch. For hours, we outlined everything. Who had what, where it would go, legal forums, Reddit threads, whistleblower sites, 2 podcasts with large followings, a law firm that specialized in medical abuse. Each would receive a different piece, same day, same hour. When we send this, Avis warned, there's no going back. I'm not going back, I said. I'm going loud. We synced timers, checked protocols, encrypted every file 3 times over. Then I sat there, cursor hovering over the button. For my mother, for Inez, for me. I clicked send. The screen blinked once, then again. File sent. It felt too quiet afterward, like the moment before a tornado touches down. Air too still, too clean. Avis stood behind me, arms crossed, eyes fixed on her phone. We didn't speak. We didn't need to. An hour later it started. Reddit threads exploded. First a trickle of, have you seen this? Then a storm. A whistleblower podcast uploaded an emergency episode. The Ridgewell Files, What They Don't Want You to Hear. Substack newsletters with titles like Experiments in the Name of Care and Patient or Prisoner flooded inboxes. TikTok was next. Short, sharp clips of Marjorie's voice layered with somber music, each one gaining thousands of views by the minute. They drugged us. They studied our breakdowns. We were never patients. We were experiments. People listened. People shared. People cried. And Ridgewell panicked. By noon, Glenda texted, they're shredding files, locking down entire wings. Someone saw Halverson being escorted out. The state attorney general made a public statement, measured, cautious, but clear. We are opening a full investigation into Ridgewell Behavioral Center and its affiliations. Hours later, Halverson Foundation's website went dark. Their donation link? Gone. Their funding sources? Frozen. I sat by the window, watching snow melt off the cabin's roof, phone in hand, breath shallow. The silence wasn't still anymore. It was cracking. Avis turned to me. You did it. I didn't smile. I couldn't. Not yet. That night, a law firm called Avis, the same firm that once ignored Marjorie's letters, now said 6 words I never thought I'd hear. We believe your mother. We're in. I stepped outside for air and played the recording again. Just me, my boots in the slush, and my mother's voice floating into the cold. "If no one ever hears this," she said, "I hope my daughter still knows I fought." I whispered into the wind. She knows. 2 weeks passed. I hadn't returned to Lincoln. Not really. Just a detour for paperwork, legal files, a few closed-door meetings at the temporary office downtown. No press, no public statement. I'd said what I needed through action. Lowell's name hit the federal docket 3 days after the exposé. Fraud, medical conspiracy, illegal commitment. His attorney tried spinning it. Compassionate care gone misunderstood. But the judge wasn't buying it. The court denied bail. I watched the hearing from a borrowed laptop in a quiet cafe near the Oregon coast. I didn't flinch when they said his name. I didn't need revenge. I needed closure. He didn't get to see my face when it ended. That was mine. Sabrina never reached out. Not a call, not a message, not even a rumor she'd left town. Maybe she'd gone to ground. Maybe she just couldn't face what she'd enabled. A journalist asked me if I had anything to say to her. I said, "Some things belong to silence." And I meant it. Not all endings need a confrontation. Marjorie chose a small care home in Ashland. Quiet. Trees everywhere. They let her have her own room, her own paintbrushes, and, most importantly, her own voice. She was lucid more days than not. I visit every week. We don't talk about Ridgewell, we talk about daffodils, old songs she half remembers, how tomatoes should never be refrigerated. One day we started planting together, tiny pots, neat rows. Marjorie said, "You know they need warmth more than water?" I smiled. So did she. Some roots grow stronger after being buried. The podcast with her voice became the spine of a documentary. 3 parts, hundreds of thousands of views. One senator called for new patient protections. A petition hit 50,000 signatures. Reform wasn't fast, but it was starting. I turned down every interview. But I wrote one final letter, handwritten, no signature, sent to the Attorney General's office. It said, "Her name is Marjorie Guine, not case 432B. Don't forget that. I used to believe family was built on love. But now I know it's built on truth. What they did to my mother wasn't just betrayal. It was erasure. But the truth, it made her visible again. It made me visible too. If you've ever been silenced, ignored, or told your pain was too much, please hear me. Your voice matters. And speaking it, that's power. We don't heal by hiding. We heal by naming the harm, by refusing to carry shame that was never ours to begin with. So let me ask you, have you ever stayed silent to keep the peace? If this story touched something real in you, drop a 1 in the comments. Or tell me where you're watching from. I read everything. And if this story didn't resonate, that's okay. Let me know why. This space is for all voices. If you want more stories like this, subscribe. There's more coming, and they won't be quiet.